The hate doesn't become land was under litigation. They just tried to, put a blindfold over your face and they try to sell the property. Again, you need a lawyer because a lawyer would do their due diligence. People are out there trying to defraud people. Major red flag, a real estate firm that is just big dreams, all talk, no finished property. Joint venture partnership is a very powerful tool. There are lots of legal pitfalls. Always register your JV interest.
Hello, welcome to Urban Well Dialogues, the podcast for everything real estate. And I'm your host, Iberi Ibi. And today with me on this episode is an experienced legal practitioner. Her name is Ronke. Ronke, nice having you on set.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'd like you to introduce yourself and tell us more about you. This is a beautiful legal practitioner.
Thank you.
Seasoned in real estate matters.
Thank you. So my name is Ronke Temilola Fadoju. I'm a corporate lawyer, a real estate lawyer, and a real estate broker. So I help people buy, sell properties, source properties and all of that. I have a legal consultancy as well as a real estate firm called Leah's Signature Realty. I like to call it LSR. So through LSR, I help bridge real estate and, the legal aspects of it and just help protect clients and simplify the entire process.
Wow, what a robust bio. You look so soft
compared to all that you've listed.
Thank you.
And coincidentally, we're wearing the same color.
I know. Brilliant.
All right, so you're going to be telling us what we need to know before we sign any documents. Yes, while purchasing, whatever we need, all that we need to do before signing any documents. So I'm going to be throwing some questions to you and you'll be enlightening us on this. Okay. What is considered an ideal or standard percentage for agency and legal fees in property transactions?
The common practice with agency, I'm going to split it, agency and legal, right? The common practice with agency is 10%. So it's split into two. The buyer pays his agent 5% and the seller pays agent 5%. But then when it comes to legal fees, it's a bit more complicated, right? The common and improper practice is to pay your lawyer 5%. And some people even negotiate it, which, to be honest, is very wrong. But do you know that there's an order? It's called the Legal Practitioner Remuneration Order. It was issued in 2023. That issues a guideline on how to pay legal fees in property transactions. So for properties lesser than 50 million and below, the minimum you should pay your lawyer is 10%. And mind you, this guideline is not just a guideline, it's legally enforceable, right? So the minimum you should pay for 50 million and below is 10%. Now follow me because it's a bit, I'm listening. So from 50 million to 100 million, you pay 5 million naira on top of the 50 million. Then the excess, you pay 5% on top of it. So let's say the property is 80 million now, right? For the first 50 million, you pay 5 million, right? Flat fee. Then the excess of 30 million, you have to pay 5% on top of that. Do you understand that? For properties 100 and above, you pay 7.5 for the first 100 and then 3% for the excess. So that's how it's actually meant to be done. It's legally enforceable, legally binding. And do you know that any lawyer caught charging below that can get disciplined by the Legal Practitioner Disciplinary Committee?
Okay.
Yeah. So
you said something. You said that's how it's meant to be done. So is it possible that this is not being followed?
It's not being followed as it is right now. But people, you know how it is because you'll say, you know what?
So how come people are getting away with it and they haven't been brought to book?
I think over time it would be, but for now everyone wants to eat. So when you have someone come to you and tell you that they want you to help deal with the legal aspects of things, some people, which to be honest I insist on it, right? But you have a lot of lawyers out there who just choose to just go with it. You negotiate it and then you just agree. So, but I believe over time, that order will start to become more popular and people will start to follow it.
Okay. So I think this is why it is very necessary for you to engage the services of a lawyer, because it is, a lot of times when we are naive.
Of course. A lot of these things, a lot of people don't know about it, or I believe over time, people will start to become more aware, and it will start to become even more enforceable.
Okay, so let me also throw another question in line with this. In the case of renting, why is the tenant made to pay for an agreement between himself and the lawyer? Like, why should I pay for the agreement, for our own agreement? That's really correct too.
It is actually, and in that situation, both parties actually benefit from the legal agreements, right?
Okay.
But even more so, the tenant needs it much more than the landlord, because he needs something, the tenant needs something to help protect their right to occupy.
Okay.
So in that situation, at the end of the day, the landlord owns the property, he has paperwork to show and documentations to show for it. What evidence does the tenant have to show that they have the right to occupy that property? So it's necessary. That's why they bear the costs, because it's much more important for the tenant.
But shouldn't the cost be shared?
That's just not how
because it's benefiting both parties.
But the tenant even more. It benefits the tenant so much when the tenant has much more to lose. So in that situation, the landlord's lawyer is who drafts it, and of course the tenants can always get the lawyer to review what's been drafted. But that's just how it is.
Okay, there's a common belief that if a tenant occupies a property for a long time, they may gain ownership rights. Is there any legal?
Sure, there is. No, there isn't. That is a very widespread myth. There isn't. The law only recognizes ownership through title documents.
Okay.
And that's it, But however, in some rural settings, there's been situations where, because of the customary law, long-term occupancy has given rise to claims, but that's very, very, very rare. And it would definitely need court interpretation.
Okay.
Yeah, so it doesn't happen.
It's just not the way. It's more or less a lyric thing.
Yes, it is.
Could you share real life examples or lessons from your professional experience relating to buy property? So have you encountered all those rifts? There's this, usually, if you're not very careful, there's usually a case of you falling into wrong hands and buying a property that has the sold to Soga. So,
of course, sure. And this is why getting a lawyer is very important. I remember a situation where a client got in touch with me to help him do my due diligence with a property he wanted to buy. So I sat down with the seller, looked through all the documents, and a lot of the times, the little things matter. Trust your guts and your inklings, right? So I saw the documents, very fresh. It looked really new for a transaction that happened over 5-6 years ago. But you know what? It's like, he probably is just an organized guy, right? But that for me was an inkling. It looked like it was just prepared yesterday. So I did all of my findings, did all my due diligences. The signatures matched what was in ages, right? And I thought, okay, you know what? No problem. Dig some more. I did. I got in touch with the first allotee, the person he supposedly bought from, only to find out that the person said he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Really?
He hasn't sold this property to him. That sure, they were supposed to get into a JV together, and that's why he has the original title document, but he hasn't sold the property to him yet. So now imagine if my client had gotten it from him. My clients will have no legal claim over that property, and the true owner would be able to get the property back. So it's very important to always engage your lawyer. Your lawyer knows what to comb through, the signs to look out for. It could even be, their mannerism that could just make you, yes. And it's happened a lot, believe me. And I don't let it go. When I smell something really, so I'm like, I have to dig. I have to find out. I have to know. I go through every single thing to ensure that it's clean.
But I really look to like.
Oh no, trust me.
You look really so.
They hate to see me coming. They hate to see me coming.
I'm being really brutal on the field.
Absolutely. I'm calling like, where is this? I haven't sent this. You haven't provided that. I'm going to check this. I checked this. I saw, some discrepancies. Explain it. So yeah, they hate to see me coming.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so you said something. You made mention of JV. So I'm going to ask you a question relating to that. Okay, so what are some of the common legal challenges encountered in joint venture real estate agreements?
With joint venture partnership is a very powerful tool in real estate, right? But there are lots of legal pitfalls that's, a lot of developers and the parties getting into JVs don't pay attention to. Number one, and I feel like it's very, very important, with developers, always register your JV interests.
Okay.
Always register
Okay, sorry. I'm going to cut you.
Yeah.
So just
In case the viewers don't understand what JV is, could you explain and then we can continue?
Joint venture, that's what JV is. Joint venture is when, the owner of the land needs someone to help him develop the property. So he gets a developer and then they get into an agreement to develop the property and then they come up with like a sharing ratio, So that's what joint venture is.
Okay.
Yes, it will help. So now if as a developer, you've met up with the landowner, agreed to help develop the property, and you've gotten into that agreement, you should always register your interest at ages. Always, Another thing is to always ensure that there's a clearly defined profit sharing ratio. You see a lot of JV parties run into a project, run into an agreement, and they don't ever specify how they're going to share the profits and losses.
Okay.
Now when money starts coming in and expectations don't align, there's a problem, and just all of the issues come about, Then what else? Ensure that the documents are adequate. The title has been perfected.
Okay.
There are no issues with the document. Whatever documents the landowner is presenting to you is fine, because if you don't, this can stall the development, and it can stall financing and all of that, and it can create issues. So just always ensure it's fine, right? So yeah.
Okay. So are there specific documents to have, like perhaps?
Yeah.
Because you just list them out?
Yes. So if he claims to have a CFO, ensure that he does have it.
Okay.
He has title, the deed of assignment. He actually does have ownership over the property, and ensure that whatever title documents he has been perfected, whether regularized at ages, and he has registered his title. So basically the idea behind this is to ensure that the person who says they are the owner of the property, they are actually the owner of the property. You don't want to get into problems. So that's really it. So if they have a CFO, RFO, ages compliance survey, everything, just ensure everything, is up to date. They have paid their ground rent. There are no issues really. And always get your lawyer. If you don't know, get your lawyer to check everything out.
Okay. So what's the registration at age is all about? You talked about data registration and all. So can you enlighten us more about the registration?
Okay. So let's say you now, right? Let's use it for example. You buy a house in Maitama. You buy a house in Maitama, the whole process has been done. You've made payments. You've gotten the original title document. You've gotten, what's it called? Your deeds. Everything has been done. All the documentations, you have it done, right? And you keep it in your house. You don't do anything about it. Let's say you want to sell it tomorrow, right? Party B comes. He wants to buy the property from you. He's going to have to go and find out if you actually genuinely own the property. So you might have all the necessary documentations, but who's to say you didn't steal it? Who's to say you didn't, you didn't forge the transfer of title document? It needs to go to the land registry, the authority over land, to ensure that you actually own the property. But because you just kept documents at home and you didn't do anything about it, you didn't go to the land registry, the body in charge, the department in charge is called AGIS, Abuja Geographical Information System. The authority in charge doesn't have any record of you. So if they go to the authority in charge and they say, oh, I want to buy this property, does Miss Iberi have it? Does she own it? I mean, they don't recognize you. And then the issues then come up, like, how are they sure you own the property? And because they don't recognize you, they only recognize the person you bought it from, right? So you can't technically, really, in the eyes of the law, sell to the new buyer. So to ensure you have a perfect title, once you buy property from somebody, you have to go to the authority in charge, which is AGIS, to register. Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. can the tenant's receipts, we talked about legal fees and the necessary fees for that the tenant is supposed to make. Oh, okay, so can the tenant's receipts serve as can it serve as an indication that he leased this property for this period of time, not paying the legal fees? Can that work? Well, can the tenant bypass paying the legal fees?
No, it's not advisable. No, it's not advisable. I think the thing with the legal aspects of real estate is when you follow these processes, it gives you a very strong title, right? It gives you confidence of your ownership, whether as a tenant, for the period where you're occupying the property, or as an owner. That's why you need to follow these processes properly. So if you as a tenant send me money or pay your rent to me, right? And there's no legal agreement between us. What if I claim that it's money you owe me over something else?
It will hold because
you don't have to go to court and there's a whole lot to prove. But if there's an agreement, all I just need to do is read past my agreement. Your signature is there. So what can you say now? Nothing. So it just secures your, what's it called? It secures your status. That's what it does. So it's always advisable to have an agreement. Always.
Yeah. So how is the rent period calculated? For instance, I make payment on the 14th of January. My next due date, will it be on the 14th of January next year?
No. So the way it's calculated is it would be on the 13th of January, not 14th, not that same day.
Yeah. Why is that?
It's just how it's done. It's how it's calculated, so everywhere it's 13th of January. So a day before, yes, that's how it's calculated.
Is the documentation process for land in Abuja uniform across all locations? Specifically, are all land records accessible through Aegis?
It should be, but it isn't. Okay, so here's the thing. Theoretically, it should be, but practically it's not, right? So under the Land Use Act, the federal government owns all land, right? All land belongs to the federal government and they have authority to allocate all land, whether the urban lands or rural lands, they have authority over that. Now, in that same act, this is where it gets complicated. The local council also has authority to administer land in rural areas. Okay. So there's a conflict, right? So now the FCDA, which is the federal government, has a body, like we discussed earlier, Aegis, right? So FCDA allocates the lands everywhere, should allocate lands everywhere. But because local council also has the authority to allocate in rural areas, there's a conflict. So what FCDA does is it pretty much focuses on the core districts, right? Like, where we call in town, Maitama, Wusaitu, Garki, those areas. So with that, Aegis gives you the formal documentation. It is easily trackable, it is digitized and all of that. But then for Amak land, which is under the local council, those are in areas like Shiri, Nyanya, Lube.
Yeah.
It's not as digitized. It's not even digitized at all. It's manually maintained.
Oh no.
So you need a whole lot of due diligence, when you're trying to buy a property in those areas. You need to do a lot of due diligence and an extra level of, your detective work to ensure that.
But that's going to be very painstaking because
it is.
There would always be that possibility of them allocating a land that has already been sold to someone else.
Exactly. So now,
how do you?
Yeah. So that's why it's complicated. That's why when you get a property in those areas in the Amak land, you should always go to Aegis to get it regularized. So, in a sense, the way it's been worked out, the way this complexity has been worked out is. Amak lands or area councils are pretty much a subordinate to FCDA. So whatever land you get from Amak, right, you have to regularize at Aegis. Because if you don't, and Aegis and FCDA allocates that same land to someone else, right?
Yeah.
Whoever is holding the FCDA title document or allocation would be the rightful owner of the property. So that's just how it works.
All information about the land can be found in Aegis. For the ones in the urban area.
In the urban areas, definitely. So if you get a property in Wuye, for instance, or these urban areas, you can always go to Aegis. It's very easy to track it because they keep all the records digitized. So it's easily trackable.
So at Aegis now, can you ascertain a land that has been through litigation, like a land that has had an issue before? Do we have such records of Aegis?
Definitely. Aegis would always keep the records of it. That's the point of it. They're very formal, so everything is digitized. So besides Aegis, if you want to do a litigation search, you should always go to Aegis first of all, do a legal search. They will have all the information, right, on any encumbrances or any litigation that has occurred, right? And then I always advise, get a lawyer to do a court search as well. Yes.
Okay. So are there also records of if a land, for instance, now the lands that were termed mixed use, can such lands become commercial probably in future? Is there that?
Absolutely. So what it is when you get a land and you have your title documents, let's say you have a certificate of occupancy, it would always specify what the purpose of the land is. So it can either be residential, it can either be commercial, but if you want to verify it, you have to check the documents, right? And you can also verify through the urban and regional, the planning department. If you also want to change it, you have to make, an application to that department as well, and asking them to change it or help you convert it. And if they see need to, or if they see reasons to, or if it works with their planning of that area, they definitely would. But if not,
so changes can actually be made.
Yes, changes can be made. You just have to make the application to that department. Yes, so they would make the changes if it works for the plans. But then if not, you just have to stick with it like that. And if you go against it, there are penalties to it.
At least, and the land can be revoked.
Oh, yes, definitely. Really, definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
So what are the red flags to look out for? Red flags, indicators that tell you that this land may have an issue, or this seller may be fraudulent. Are they red flags? Are they things that can give that?
Yes. There's so many red flags. I mean, the real estate is a very active market, but it's also one of the most litigated sectors. So there are lots of red flags you have to be wary of. I think the funny and the first one I would like to mention is observing the seller or his agent's attitude. So when you ask them to provide certain documentations and they are being shady about it, or they are being, sketchy, or you ask them to provide the documents to carry out a search and they don't, or they refuse to go to Aegis, definitely that's a red flag. Do not buy that property. Another red flag is inconsistent title documents. So when you have like one information on, let's say, the letter of allocation, right? The plot size, for instance, on the letter of allocation is different from the plot size on the deeds. When you have inconsistencies like that, or say, for instance, the survey plan doesn't match the coordinates, that there's a problem, and you either dig deep or you leave it, because it indicates fraudery or tampering of some sort, right? Also, like I've mentioned before, if the seller's title his title document is not perfected, he hasn't gone to regularize it at Aegis. So let's say the land is what's it called? Let's say the land is an AMAC land, right? And he hasn't gone to regularize it at Aegis. It's a red flag. Or he hasn't registered his title. He bought the property, hasn't registered the title. It's a red flag. Always make sure you do your due diligence. Get a lawyer to, ensure everything is fine. Another trap is power of attorney sales. So because someone has power of attorney over a property does not mean he can sell to you. So,
sorry, can you explain the power of attorney?
So again, I'll use it for an example. So let's say you want to sell your property, but you're not around and you're like, oh, please help me with the sale of this property, right? You would have to, yes, so you have to give me a letter of some sort or document of some sort, making me act on your behalf. Me acting on your behalf does not mean I have the authority to transfer ownership to somebody else.
Okay.
I'm just acting in your stead. At the end of the day, every document that would transfer title to the next person must still be signed by the owner. If you pay to the power of attorney holder, right, and you let the power of attorney holder sign the transfer of title documents, you're on your own. Because if the true owner wants to come back to get that property, he would, because he never sold it to you. So that's a trap a lot of people need to avoid. Always make sure the owner of the property is the one who signs and rightfully transfers the property to you. Yeah.
Interesting. Very, very insightful.
Yeah.
So are they developers or real estate firms that are like red flag, that are known for fraudulent activities? Are there ways that you can identify?
There are.
Okay.
There are, definitely. And I always say this. I don't believe people set out to be fraudulent a lot of the time, especially in this real estate sector. People have dreams, very big dreams. And then when it's in their faces, they can't meet up, and then that's where the fraudulent aspect comes into it. They start to, avoid their clients, people who have invested, people who have given them money to, develop properties for them, or even people who have invested in them and are expecting their returns. That's where you start to get all the cock and bull story. And then it now starts to turn into a situation whereby they're using Peter's money to pay Paul. They collect money from one person until they can't keep up, So a lot of the time, definitely some people see real estate as an avenue to defraud people, but I think very few, But again, the moment you start becoming fraudulent, you are a fraudulent person. So I would always say, I think the major red flag is when you see a real estate firm that is just big dreams, all talk and no finished property.
Okay, so those are the signs.
Yes. Always ask for their properties. Where have they finished? Just look through their portfolio, their company profile, see what they have done, and ensure that they have. Yes. That would tell you all you need to know about,
It is about consistency and about finishing.
Yes, finishing. Once you see an organization that has finished properties and, very well.
And then, there are individuals that you can.
Exactly.
That are living in such estates or so.
Exactly. And once you've seen them do 1 or 2 or 3, then your confidence in them starts to grow. But when it's just promises and all talk, or come and invest, buy this, buy that, just run away from it. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I would like you to share some personal experiences you had engaging with fraudulent developers or fraudulent realtors. How you handled it?
Yes, definitely. I've had situations where land was under litigation, but they just tried to, put a blindfold over your face, and they try to sell the property. And that's why, again, you need a lawyer, because a lawyer would do that due diligence and comb through the entire thing and ensure they don't miss anything, because people are out there trying to defraud people. So I've seen situations where, the property was under litigation, and, it was until the very end that we realized, and thank God we actually went, because a lot of people overlook court search. Most people do not carry out court search. They just go to AGs, see if there's litigation. And yes, AGs would usually have that information. But, there's a few times where it might not show up, very rarely. So always carry out a court search as well is very, very important, So I've been in several situations. Honestly, you really just need a lawyer to help you comb through everything, every aspect of it, because it is a very litigated sector. Trust me, there are people out there with fake documents. There are people out there who would take someone's original CFO and go and duplicate it. The minute you ask them to bring the documents to AGs, they start to run away, because they know once they get to AGs, the truth will be uncovered, and they will get arrested. So just know your onions. Get a lawyer to guide you through every step of the way. Yeah.
Legal assistance is our way out.
It's critical. It's very critical. And a real estate lawyer especially. There's a lot of things that a regular lawyer might not know, let's say I don't know what lawyers are there. Corporate. I'm a corporate lawyer as well, though. But there are different sectors basically. So you just need someone who is very vast and knowledgeable. Yes, in real estate. Yes,
quite interesting. Thank you so much, Rumpe. It's been very, very insightful.
Thank you.
Hearing you share about what to look out for, the red flags, the documentation needed and all that. Thank you so much for
welcome. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
We come to the end of today's episode of the podcast, and I remain your favorite host, Eberibi. Do like, share, follow, and subscribe all our social media platforms. See you in the next episode.